From the kitchen of the cabin,
it's the 5 Games for Doomsday news
with Ben and Steve. Well, this is very exciting. This is a transatlantic news show. I'm here in the frosty confines. What?
The first transoceanic news show that we've done?
I think it is the first transoceanic news show that we've done. Isn't it exciting? I'm in Berlin in the freezing cold, and Steve is all the way in sunny America. Isn't it exciting? Isn't it evocative? Steve's in New York, Manhattan City.
Yep.
That's what they call it, right?
Manhattan City is the city of my birth, and I'm here for kind of like a homecoming situation.
That's right.
We had some bad news in the family recently. There's been some death, some sickness. I feel like I'm in one of those, like going home movies. You know what I mean? Like that's full of all the cliches. I'm like waiting for people to drop the classic lines. Like what are the classic lines in these going home movies? You know, like, what do you care? You left and you come all the way back here from your fancy life and you look down on us. You have no idea. That shit like that.
Yeah, has that happened to you?
You never cared.
I mean, saying that though, I mean, you know, you must have had a fancy life growing up, definitely growing up in Manhattan.
Yeah, well, because I definitely grew up in Manhattan, I had the kind of life that you would expect of someone who definitely grew up in Manhattan, which is to say that
definitely. So where in Manhattan did you grow up?
Well, there's a small neighborhood in Manhattan that's called Hackensack.
Okay.
New Jersey.
Okay. Okay.
So, you know, it's not technically on the island of Manhattan, but it's like 5 miles away. What's the difference?
And you know, I suppose it has the same sort of joie de vivre and boho class that Manhattan has, Hackensack, New Jersey.
Absolutely. It's like literally the same. You go out on the streets of Hackensack, and if you didn't know any better, you'd be like, I'm in Manhattan right now.
I mean, do you see yourself as kind of do you see yourself as the most sophisticated person in the world?
In the entire world? I doubt the entire world, Ben.
But you're quite sophisticated, aren't you? You know, grew up in New Jersey, opposite a Burger King.
I have many fond memories of that Burger King. I had onion rings there all the time. I went there so often for onion rings that when they saw me coming, they would prepare them for me in advance. You know, that's the kind of service you don't get anymore.
You would walk up, they would see you approaching, they'd be, throw the onion rings in for the fat kid. Were they like that?
You've got some nerve showing your face around here. That's another line from the Coming Home movie.
Oh, so I guess you've got cooler friends now you live in the city. Is that how they sound in New Jersey? I'm from Hackensack, New Jersey. Do you want a pint of beer? Do they say that?
Given that you've never been there, I mean, it's like a spot on. Like, are you from New Jersey? Wait, Ben, are you from New Jersey, Ben?
Yes, I'm all the way from New Jersey.
I feel like I'm even more at home than I was before.
What connection do you think Jersey has to New Jersey? Do you think they're similar places?
So one of them is an island in the English Channel that's full of sheep or something, and cows, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, something like, well, it's the island of millionaires, isn't it? You can't move to, that was what I was told as a kid, you can't move to Jersey unless you're a millionaire.
Is that true? I think it's true of New Jersey as well. I think it's like the richest state in the country. Not that everybody here is rich, but
really?
I guess, yeah, I think there are a lot of wealthy people who have property in New Jersey. Maybe they work on Wall Street, but they commute, something like that.
Is your favourite politician Chris Christie?
He's one of my favorites for sure. I mean, I just sort of like his like brassy, take no prisoners style, you know?
And eats lots of food. Anyway, so here we are. We're here, first section of the news, talking about the Atlantic, isn't it? It's very, very fascinating. So we're here to thank the cavalcade of Patreon backers that have come on in the previous month. So how many, Steve? If you had to guess, how many?
God, your podcast? Or should I be saying our podcast, Ben? I mean,
yeah. 5 Games for Doomsday, considered one of the greatest.
I was actually thinking today. I was walking down the streets of Manhattan, as I have so often done in my life, and I was thinking, am I a podcaster? Because I realized I don't regard myself as a podcaster. I think of you as a podcaster, and me as a kind of like sometime contributor,
Sidekick?
But something
Sidekick,
like that.
kind of, boring little baldrick or something?
Sidekick, side piece, whatever you want to call it. And I wonder, does Ben regard me as a podcaster in equal standing?
What I think is completely inconsequential. It's what other people think. It's what the listeners to this podcast think. So get on the Twitter at 5Games4Doomsday. Hashtag Steve the Podcaster. Hashtag Steve is nothing. Just get on it. Tell us what you think.
That's the number 5 and the number 4, I think, right? If Twitter hasn't exploded.
Well, I mean, people are saying that, but it seems to be fine. I haven't noticed any quantifiable difference. I mean, I don't follow any Nazis, so they haven't popped up in my newsfeed. So, and I like the digital hugs that you get from the bots on Twitter. I've had so many attractive women have sent me DMs in the last couple of days. It's hugely exciting.
Those are probably fans.
Oh, they're definitely fans. Jean XXX37492. Ben, click this link to chat with me private. I mean, she definitely means it. She's definitely not a robot and she's not trying to steal my identity.
Okay, now that I know that you're definitely getting all of this additional attention on Twitter, I'm going to guess that you've got at least 100 new backers this month, and how are we going to get through 100 names? It's going to take hours. Oh my god.
Well, I know, but fortunately, it's not that many. So if you take the 100, and you remove one of the zeros, what have you got?
You've got a 1 and then an empty space and then a 0.
No, you remove the end 0, not the bloody middle 0. You twat.
Well, you didn't say which one.
I knew you'd go for the most awkward option with that question. If you remove the end 0, how many have you got?
10, Ben? Have we got 10 new patrons?
All right, then, have we, Steve? Then, if you remove the second 0, how many have you got?
Mom always loved you more than me. She never told you that, did she? That's another one of the lines from the Coming Home movie.
That's another one of the lines, yeah. So how many? You're the maths person. You remove the second 0. How many do you have?
1.
Congratulations, Lee Devaney. Steve, what is Lee Devaney's nickname?
I thought it was your turn this month.
Oh, I never remember who did it. All right, Lee Devaney. I'm going to call him the Artery Man.
Because the Devaney, I was trying to do something with Devaney as well. Yeah. That's good.
Anyway, so, we're going to move on now to a live outside broadcast from 5G4D's sexiest reporter, all the way from England. Let's get over to him. News. So here we are, it's Gathering of Chums, day 1, and I'm here with the man himself, the birthday boy. Hey. Possibly the most objectionable designer in the whole realm of board games, and this is Tony Boydell. Tony,
you. Hello.
Thank you for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure. You forgot Toxic, by the way, the most toxic board game.
Exactly, and it's your birthday today.
It is indeed, yes.
So how old are you? 72?
55, but thank you for asking.
Wow. And so...
all the 5s. 55.
Do you get an inch of scrotum length every year after 40?
It depends. Depends if I want to take the piercings out or put them back in again.
Right, that's very true. Anyway, so we're here Gathering of Chums, which is the 5th annual, is it?
This is the 5th one, yeah.
So give us the origin of the convention. How did you come up with it?
Well, it was a birthday party. Actually, a friend of mine, Richard, had a 50th birthday party, and he rented a holiday house down in Littlehampton, I think, on the seaside, and for the whole week. And then basically people came and went during that whole week.
Right.
I'm a cheapskate, so I decided for my 50th birthday I wouldn't rent a place for the entire week, but I did rent the back room of my local pub, which is where we're sat now, the King's Arms in Newent, a splendid real ale pub, and invited everybody over for the party. And I got some beer brewed up. I actually didn't get it brewed up; it was already there. But I got some beer with custom labels printed on it, and it was it was a birthday party, and it was so much fun. And I thought, well, look, nothing else really happens in November apart from Mid-Con, the tail end of Essen Spiel, the build-up to BGG-Con,
GridCon.
and all that, or GridCon, all that kind of stuff. So nothing happens in November apart from those events. I thought, well, why not just try it again the following year? And it was just as good, just as well attended, just as successful. It's a quiet thing. There's no vendors here. There's nobody selling trade stuff. It's just people chatting, playing board games for 2.5 hours.
I assume you have no aspiration to make it a big thing.
No. I like the personability of it. That it's sort of by invitation only, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. So the more the merrier, really.
Tell us about Newent. So people listening to this will have no idea that the village, town, hamlet,
it's a town,
collection of races that is Newent exists. Tell us about Newent.
Well, it's a very old-standing market town on the edge of the Forest of Dean, on the north edge of the Forest of Dean. It has quite a long and venerable history. It has local coal mining heritage and with the Forest of Dean's iron mining heritage as well. Of course, it's linked with all of that. It used to have a lovely railway that passed through it. It went to... somebody's buying me a beer. A Beetlejuice would be lovely, Craig. Thank you very much. There we go. Start me off. I'm going to be mental by 4 o'clock.
Do another interview at 3.
Yeah, exactly right. So the railway went from Hereford to Gloucester, and it's the Daffodil Railway. It was called that because
that is a Snowdonia
scenario.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And so, it's just a fairly sleepy little bygone market town. It's very quiet nowadays. There's not much going on.
And how long have you lived here then?
23 years now.
And how have you seen the town change over that time, or is it not? Is it a time capsule?
It's quite a time capsule, really. Yeah, it's a couple of the tourist attractions that used to be here have closed down, but it's just quiet, really. It's just nobody sort of disturbs the peace. Yeah, it's what it is.
I don't want it to be morbid. It's your plan to curl your toes up in Newent
and be carried out in a wooden box in Europe. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to the homeland, Wales.
Land of our fathers.
Throw myself down an abandoned mine shaft or something. I don't know.
And so, what do you want to do this year then? At your gathering of Chums, what's your plans? What's your aspiration?
I'll play some games. I've already got needlessly inebriated. Played lots of games with people already. I want to play more games. Just talk to everybody. A few people haven't been back since pre-COVID, so it's nice to say hello to people. I mean, you're one of the guys.
I haven't been here since the first one.
So it'd be nice to just reacquaint myself with various peeps and just spend some quiet time before normality resumes on Monday with work and all that nonsense.
So if anyone was to listen to this and think, I could join the Facebook group and maybe come next year, why should they come?
Because they like me. I don't really want people coming who don't like me. That makes it really awkward.
That's why there's no propensity for it to grow.
It's really tough. It's really tough and makes it a little bit awkward for everybody else. It's a quiet thing. If you like something quiet and you like playing games and you're not too fussy about anything, like a nice beer.
Yeah.
The pub does an excellent range of real ales. And just because you'd like something to do that's not GridCon or BGGCon or whatever it might be.
News.
So I'm delighted to have on the news show currently the most newsworthy person in all of board gaming, coming off the $1 million campaign of Unconscious Minds, and also kind of in some ways my boss, Jonny Pac. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm not sure if I'm your boss, but it's been really fun collaborating with you. So,
well, I'm going to have to be very nice to you now. Now you're my boss. So whatever you say goes, Jonny. If you want me to sort of kneel in front of you and act like a footstool or something, I'm there for it.
As long as the footstool narrates, I'm happy.
So anyway, we're talking about the campaign of Unconscious Minds just finished, and I'm connected to the project because I did one of the voices for the Kickstarter video. I utilised my ability to do outrageous German accents, and it's been buzzing for ages now. Unconscious Minds, it was demoed at Essen, and there was never any doubt that it was going to be a barnstorming Kickstarter, and it turned out to be so. But explain first of all, so in the Essen interviews, I interviewed the guys at Fantasia, and they told me sort of how the idea for the game came about, but how did you get on board?
Yeah, so I'm the lead internal developer for Fantasia Games, and their flagship was Endless Winter, which crowdfunded a while back, and then it took a little bit longer than expected to fulfill, and it's just getting into stores now, and in Europe it's been especially delayed due to some hang-ups at the docks and whatnot. And of course, once that was successful and the company was founded and had some cash flow and bandwidth, they're looking for their next titles, and so they're looking externally, taking pitches and stuff like that a little bit, looking at stuff that I've been working on, as well as kind of this other project that the owner of Fantasia Yorgo and his friends, designer friends, had kind of designed on the side previous to really Fantasia becoming a thing. And they pitched parts of what is now Unconscious Mind to, say, other companies, or just doing the designers pitching games sort of process. And it had been kind of backburnered. And at some point, while we were working on Endless Winter, Yorgo said, hey, we've got this game. It's kind of set in Freudian, Vienna. Do you want to take a look at it on TTS? We have a nice mod. Just be honest. Tell me what you think, and tell me if this would maybe be good for Fantasia, since kind of what our direction is. So we went on there and played a full game together. I really enjoyed what I saw, and I liked the theme, the setting, the overall feel of the thing, and some of the core mechanisms were pretty intriguing. And so I said, yeah, this is cool. Let's do this. And so we agreed to make that the kind of sophomore effort of Fantasia. And from there, it was kind of like, as a developer, I'm going to give full disclosure, I'm kind of invasive sometimes when I work on things. So it kind of borders on a lot of design work and stuff like that. So knowing that it was going to be a collaboration, we agreed that, I was going to come in and develop the game, but I was also going to do whatever it took to bring it up to the kind of the scope of the Fantasia thing, and even get, grace from the other designers to go in there and redesign parts, work with them, and just see what we can make out of the thing from a very reconstruct sort of as it was. So I was invited in with the grace of these guys to work on that. So the thing I will always mention is I did not come up with the theme, and some of the core mechanisms, like the little ink pot moving around and activating rows of tiles, some of those absolute pillars of the design were intact before I onboarded.
And so let's go back even further then. So how did you get the gig at Fantasia?
That was interesting. So it was a cold contact on Facebook. I got a message request. Usually it's some manufacturer. It says, we make board games, and I'm like, I'm a designer. I'm not a publisher. Delete. I just got this cold contact from Yoma, the co-owner of Fantasia, and just says, hey, we're looking for a developer for this game. We've got a project. Would you be willing to talk to us sometime? And we're in, Greece. I'm like, all right. So I got on call with him, and he had this really pretty ambitious plan. And it just all this, they signed this game, Endless Winter. They had all this stuff they were going to do. They're going to launch this line and all this stuff. But they hadn't really been to like conventions in the same sense, like building, pre-campaigning the company and all this. They were just going to come out of the gates and do this thing. And they started off and says, we'd just like you to look at this game we acquired. And what if we pay you like, I don't know, say $100? You just play it a few times. We'll send you print and play files. You tell us if it's good or not, and anything you think. We just want feedback on it. So I said, all right. So I agreed. I was like, sure, cute little one-off gig. Why not? And they sent me over the files, the rule book, printed it up, brought it up to a play test event, and taught it to the people there and played through it. And to be honest, I came back the next day and wrote them, it's the exact numbers, this 17-page thing of feedback, kind of being very, very critical of the game, honestly. And I thought, I hate to kind of tell you guys, there's a lot of things I was just not really into when I saw it. The playtesters struggled with some things. The game length was kind of overstated its welcome. There's just a lot of things that I felt needed fine-tuning, and I said, good luck. And so then they circled back and said, okay, we thought you're insightful and good, but we actually really appreciate the type of criticism that you gave, because it was constructive. And they said, would you be willing to come on board as the developer and try to implement some of these ideas and tweak some of these things that you've pointed out? I said, well, if you talk to the designer and he's okay with that and you guys are cool with that, and let's do something where I take the thing and just kind of go crazy with it, assuming I've got no restrictions. Then I just pitch it back to you, and you pitch it back to the designer and see if you actually think this is any better, what I come up with. And so that's kind of where it kicked off, and we did kind of a little back and forth cycle like that. And then as we got more and more involved, we just realized we had a really good working relationship, and they wanted to kind of have me on a sort of a retainer, be like, would you drop other gigs and be our internal developers? Well, I've got so many outstanding other gigs as a developer that I've pre-agreed to that between my time constraints and everything else, I can't commit to this now, but I would like to work towards that, especially as, that game comes out, gets established, and then move on to the rest of their catalog, which would have more opportunities to be, like an author more so than a developer as well.
And so, coming back to Unconscious Minds then, so my first question is, it was clear, I think, from the beginning that the Kickstarter campaign was going to be a success. You can never put a sort of finger on a figure, I assume, but it was clear it was going, there was a lot of hype around it. How did you get that hype train moving?
Well, the thing with these guys is it's somehow really organic, because even looking at Endless Winter, and it's like, how did, one guy in Greece, one guy in the island of Cyprus on the Greek side, and me in California at the time, now Nevada, how did we come out and just throw a game on Kickstarter mid-pandemic with no paid marketing campaigns, not going to conventions and, giving out t-shirts and doing demos? How did we just do this? And I think part of the strategy is, Yoma is a fantastic art director and has a great eye for how to present everything in general, which is the big secret weapon there. And then on the other side, I think there's a certain amount of wow and splash that will show off things when they look really cool. But the other half is that we're very transparent in how we operate. And so we have a Facebook group, and say we get a sketch from Andrew Bosley of A New Dream or something. We'll put the sketch up there and just have people comment on it, check it out, or they'll suggest things, and sometimes we'll work off of those things. When we get a finished piece of artwork, we'll show that. When we get a finished piece of artwork that has icons and stuff, in-game stuff on it, we share that too. So to me, it's really about this kind of open and sharing process, and it aligns a lot with even how I like to operate. Is some backers of Unconscious Mind know is we have an open TTS mod. You can go out and demo and play the game, and there was demos at S and all this. Yeah, we had a front-facing playable game, but we also didn't hide the fact that we're still tweaking stuff. We're changing stuff. Yeah, it's the middle of a big campaign, but we're making little changes. And if somebody circles into the campaign and says, hey, I don't think, this little part is accessible for, colorblind or something like that, we're not going to be like, it's too late, it's all ready for print. We said, great, yeah, if it's within our budget and capacity to fix something and make it better, we'll do it. And I kind of feel that same way, that I try to take as much criticism and from people on TTS, whatever else during the campaign, BGG, and work with that. And I think there's a certain amount of confidence that builds in us. Now, we also have this kind of a double-edged sword, is we don't want to just basically crowdsource everything and just let, everybody else make our games for us. But there's really a lot of truth in the fact that if you design a game and do icons and all this stuff and rule books internally, and it's just you and your little crew looking at it over and over again, you become blind to it. You forget that there's the day that something is released on the market, thousands of people are going to play your game, hopefully, and they're going to find stuff, unknowns that you couldn't have thought of. And you can get a lot of that out by just bring it to Essen, bring it to the Protospiel events, put it on TTS, talk with people on BGG, have them nitpick it, and just have the ability to see the gems when somebody points out that there's something that could have been better, and recognize it, and put your ego aside and implement that and see if it works. And if it comes back and it's, big thumbs up, you've got a better game. And I think that also engages the community, because they really do feel part of the project. They're not just saying, hey, it's a pre-order system, I'm going to throw money at you and you give me a game in a few months. It's, it is interactive. We do care about our end users quite a bit.
And so the campaign did over $1 million. How surprised were you by how well it did by the end of the campaign?
So our initial projections, we had some figures from Endless Winter, which did very well. If you include the Pledge Manager money that was made after Endless Winter of people either late pledging or the dollar backers that then turned into full backers during the Pledge Manager. Endless Winter was able to pull over $1 million at that point. So it's one of those things where if you get the screenshot of the end of the campaign, it's not, but in truth, it is. And then once it's in retail, it's going to exceed that even more. So this one, we knew that we had more people subscribe to the landing page for this one. We had more collaborators. We had the good grace of more influencers, because at first we were just cold contacting people. We had to kind of leverage my connections actually and be like, "Hey, Rado, you know, you like some of my other games. I'm working with this other company. Would you check it out?" Right, and kind of opening those doors. Where this go around, we had all those people coming to us being like, "Oh my gosh, would you send us, you know, your next game?" And we didn't have to ask as much. We actually had to cherry pick who we sent stuff to due to limited time and resources. So overall, the numbers and the enthusiasm was just a little bit bigger, and it was going to be smoother. So we kind of looked at going, all right, if we almost made $1 million on Endless Winter, can we hit that with Unconscious Mind? And that was kind of projection. And, you know, I was looking at thinking, okay, let's watch the first day, because that can be a good indicator. A little rule of thumb, I don't know how true this is that if you take like the first day or so, that might be about a third of what you expect from the total if your campaign doesn't bomb for some reason. So you take that, you take the entire middle of the campaign, which is about a third of it, and then the last about 2 or 3 days, once the final 48 email goes out to everybody, might be another third of it. And so once I saw that figure, I was kind of like, I think this is going to be, you know, $900,000, $1 million based on that first splash, and felt comfortable there. If it were to go much beyond that, I would have been shocked. So as it came down to that final 48, I think we started in at like $800,000, and it's kind of like, okay, you know, 200,000 is no laughing joke. You know, can we get that in this last 48? And we ended up doing about 250,000 there. So we went over that. We got the €1 million mark too, since the prices drifted from each other. And you know, so having those screenshots is awesome, and having, you know, over 12,000 backers is awesome, and we're all just really glad it was received so well.
And so if you watch the video opens to one of the most outrageous German accents ever committed to tape. and so I guess my question is, and, you know, I'm nothing if not incredibly narcissistic. What made you reach out to me to ask me to do the video?
So they went on something and got, maybe you know better than I do, there's some sort of something where voice actors send over a little clip of your script, and then they also give you a price of what they would do if they did this whole thing. And they sent me back this catalog of voice actors that they'd sought out, and it was terrible. It was just indeterminate, corny accent, just after accent, and it was like, this is going to be embarrassing. You know, it's like, the thing is, like, Euro games, which I would like to think this is, are huge in Germany. And if we come out with some just really goofy accent that doesn't make sense, it's going to harm the game. So I was just immediately, I was like, oh man, do we have to pick between these? And then of course the light goes off, and it's like, I started thinking about it, it's like, who do I know that, you know, because I'm always thinking about, you know, a friend network person, like, duh, it's like, it's the obvious choice. So I immediately was like, guys, don't hate me. I know we wasted other people's time recording all this stuff. I think we've got the guy. Give me a minute. Hey, let me message him, see if he's available. So then we, you know, pinged you, sent you over the script. You sent back a sample within an hour or something. It was so much better than everything else. So I was like, here we effing go. This is our guy, and he's cool. Let's do this. And they heard it too, and they're like, oh yeah, this is fantastic. So it was just no decision once we heard your sample. It was great. And then of course the next little step is that you know, we've unlocked a stretch goal, which is to have part of the official soundtrack of Unconscious Mind, which is a digital thing that Thanos, one of the owners, is a musician. He's working on that soundtrack with some musicians. They thought it'd be awesome to have you read some famous quotes of Freud as a bonus track, basically. So that's where you get to resume the role.
So what now with Unconscious Minds? A card game along the side that you designed was announced to go with it. And so, yeah, what's the future for Unconscious Minds going on in the next sort of up until publication?
Yeah, there's a few steps. So we're never exactly confident what's going to get unlocked with stretch goals, and we would like to pre-plan and think that all those things are going to unlock and have those underway, which for the most part we had. So we will have to fill out some content, and we had placeholder art for this thing or that thing. We did a thing that allowed backers to pay kind of a premium and get one of their own dreams that they describe to the art director and Andrew Bosley, and he will draw a card, digitally paint a card that's based on their dream, and it will be included in every single game. And so we had a dozen of these tiers open, and I believe they were all taken by the end. And so we will be talking to these backers, hearing about their crazy dreams, and making this beautiful artwork of those. So that's going to be kind of incoming as we go. We have a little bit of leftover artwork to finish, doing some final development on the modules and expansions, gameplay stuff. I'm bringing in solo game expert David Digby, who's done a lot of stuff with Martin Wallace's Tinner's Trail and some other games. I've worked with him before at Randa Games and Alley Cat Games, and met up with him at Essen, showed him the game. I was like, hey, I'm going to design the solo bot, how this operates, but I need somebody who's really well versed in solo modes to just beat up on this thing and criticize it and fine tune it for me. So he's going to play the role of developer for the solo role on that one, and kind of get that up to snuff as we go. And so that'll be done concurrently while we finish the other stuff. And then there is, as you mentioned, the standalone product, which is Dream World, and it's not exactly Unconscious Mind, quote, the card game. There are some games out there that have done a very nice job of taking something like Colbert and then Colbert and the card game, and they're able to effectively, in so many ways, like take the core mechanisms of one and drop it into another, or even say Puerto Rico and San Juan, and try to replicate a lot of gameplay elements. This is a little different in that it is a very small, fast, 30-minute, 2 to 4 player card game. And the main inspiration is that we had all this beautiful dream artwork, and we wanted a way to have a game that just showed it off as best as possible, is get it in people's hands, get it on the table, let it stay on the table, and let it breathe without a lot of icon clutter and on the cards and things like that. Just let the cards do their magic. And so with that challenge, I'm looking at going, okay, we have, say 60 cards plus worth of cool artwork. And how do I make a game that's going to allow this to happen? So the director said, hey, could you make like a trick taker game or something like that? And I said, well, I could. Trick takers at this point really feel like they have to do something absolutely crazy in order to catch the market, the Cat in the Box or the Crew or something like that. And ultimately with trick takers, you play a card in front of you, and then they all get thrown into a little pile of trick, and then they're dropped, face down in the stack off the table. So their life on the table is very brief. And I didn't really feel like that was going to do much service to the artwork. It would just be, here's some cards, there's a suit, here's a number, cool, boom, gone. And then in the end, it's going to be an empty table of people counting little piles of tricks. And so I tried to think of something that would let the cards exist on the table indefinitely, maybe. So I'm starting to think like tableau builders and things like that. But of course, with tableau builders, you get into this whole rigmarole where you need a lot of icons on the cards in order to operate. Even something that's very trim, like say Seven Wonders, still has a lot of icons, and ultimately end up tucking cards, overlapping cards, trying to save table space. So I let my mind drift a little bit and thought of Slide 5 or 6 Nimt or however that game from Wolfgang Kromer has been depicted over years. And I was like, you know what? I really love simultaneous action selection. It's my game. Colum has that, and some other games. That's one of my favorite mechanisms. And I like that game, for the most part, would allow these big splays of cards to exist on the table. So, until a row would bust, you'd end up with all these sequential numbers up until the 6th card in that case were played out. And potentially you could have, a ton of cards on the table. And I was like, that's a really cool presentation for this. So what if there was a way to simultaneously, say, play dream cards, get them out on the table, and let them just be beautiful and do their thing while still being a fun, lightweight game that's in the spirit of something like that, or No Thanks, or For Sale, or these other kind of unique small box card games.
So what's in the future then for Jonny Pac outside of Unconscious Minds?
So Fantasia's got me, lined up as their internal developer. And so with few exceptions, I would be developing their stuff. Now, as I have mentioned, the invasive developer part of me, that's not always going to be the case. Like if we bring in other products, so Fantasia has a sister company called Pika Games, which is launching their first title soon, called Flow by our friend Henry Audubon, the designer of Parks. And there's wonderful artwork again from Bosley all over BGG you can check out. And so that's one where Henry is a very strong designer, and he's also the developer of this game. And so if I'm involved with this, it's going to be more in a friendly capacity or in a consultant sort of way. So I'll be looking over stuff, playtesting, giving feedback, and being involved with that. A little bit of art direction here and there, but definitely won't be ever adding my sort of content into it or building additional content for that one. But I have been involved with it since its conception, and it's really a wonderful game, and I'm really excited to see each time Henry iterates and brings it back. It's really fun to talk through it with him and see where it's going and where it might go next. We also have a little hint that I got to meet my hero Wolfgang Kramer at Essen this year, which is really special. And we have one of his classic games in our catalog that Fantasia is going to be doing a new beautiful deluxe version of, bringing that to Kickstarter next year. And we'll be working closely, though remote, with Wolfgang to bring that to completion with the team. We've got, again, 2 artists working on the product, which is interesting, 2 very different artists. And it's what I've seen so far, that is just fantastic. I can't wait to really dig in and do that. And I'm really honored to even be able to work with my hero. It's kind of a dream come true. So that's in the pipeline. And then outside of that, I've done some development work on a couple games that are going to be coming through the pipeline next year as well. And one is with Alley Cat Games called Arborea. There's a new Spanish designer who goes by Woody, Danny Garcia. And there's some pictures kind of surfacing on BGG and social media, a little bit of TTS playthroughs available. It's wonderful. He's a really, really good designer. He's unpublished at this point, but I swear in the next 2 years, he's going to be a household name of heavy Euro games. People are going to be blown away with his work. He's really sharp, got some great ideas. So I got to work on that one with him, and that was one of those games where I, as a developer, I really felt like I was being a good developer and not redesigning a lot of the stuff. I was able to consult and work through it, play test, and then we designed a little expansion together, which will be in that one. So that's one to keep an eye out for. And again, the artwork on it is just fantastic. It's this really crazy pen and ink meets watercolor gouache sort of looking stuff. Is just really beautiful. And then another one local to me is designer Stephen Aramini, who did, say, recently Eternal Palace, but of fame from Sprawlopolis, Circle the Wagons, and quite a few other games, actually. We've been working on a train game that he started and brought me in on with Alley Cat, and it's called Station to Station, and that's going to be coming from Alley Cat next year as well, and it's kind of going into the final art direction point. So the design is done, the art's being commissioned, the samples I've seen come back are beautiful, and it's very charming, and it's different than most train games out there. And that's when I first kind of saw the early prototype, I was like, this is great. This is really fun. It's about American rails and steam engines and stuff like that, but it just doesn't have some of the tropes of so many other train games. It's doing something very unique, and I was happy to be a part of that one too.
Brilliant. Well, Jonny, I wish you all the luck in the world. And, if you ever need someone to do an outrageous accent in the future for any project, keep me posted.
Always will, of course.
News.
So here we are, random number generator. The news questions. This isn't the second time we recorded this, and I forgot what I was saying the second time because I was put off because the internet is crap. Anyway, Steve, what number are you looking for?
Well, look who it is. Never thought I'd see you again. That's another line from the movie, the Homecoming movie. How many questions are there total?
28.
28. How about lucky number 13?
All right, here we go. And it's 27. So here's your question, Stevie. So for the listeners, we're recording on incredible delay for some bloody reason. He's in New York. You'd imagine it would be better. But so you might hear a slightly disconnected conversation, but that's all right. So, Andrei Dorvalski asks the question, do you feel like exploring more of the wargaming area, professional voiceover artist, or are you not drawn to those kind of conflict games? Best war game you've played so far? So, Stevie, what are you saying?
I think this is more of a question for you than it is for me, because I'm up for war games. I used to play them a lot more often. I mean, back in the 90s, basically, and I would totally play them again. The second part of the question is which is my favorite war game?
Do you feel like exploring more of the wargaming area? Are you not drawn to those type of conflict games, and the best war game you've played so far?
I want to lay down a sheet of hexagonal grid paper on the table with you sitting across from me and replay the Battle of Gettysburg, basically. I want to do that. I don't think you're ever going to want to do that. I would love to. Explore? Yeah, sure. I want to explore as much of the gaming space as I can. I don't know. My favorite war game is I just haven't played any in so long, like proper war games. I really like these like, what do you call them? The counterinsurgency games. I forget the acronym. I really enjoyed those.
Coin.
If we want to call Coin, yeah. If we want to call War of the Rings a war game, I mean, I like that, but I don't think that's what this person's talking about. So I can't really say which one is my favorite. It's just been too long. So yeah, I'm going to have to do some exploring.
Yeah, so for me, I've gone into the realm of coin games, and it feels like to me coin games are kind of about as sort of rules over heady as I like to get. Now, I'm sure a lot of war gamers will go, oh, they're basically Eurogames. They're very simple. But for me, I've just had a day of gaming, and I played Radlands, and then I played Atiwa, and I played Patchwork, and not one of those games was over what you would call medium weight. I would say medium light, actually. And all of them were wonderful. I like games that offer a profound experience with simple rules. War games scare me in that, although saying that, I've played a few coin games now, and I've loved all of them. I particularly like All Bridges Burning, and I particularly liked Gandhi. And I've bought, and me and Steve are going to play this, the 2-player coin game that's set in the Franco-Algerian War. And yeah, I mean, I used to be kind of against them because I kind of felt it seemed a little unseemly because these were real people you were turning into tokens and putting on the board and allowing to, die. But I've sort of changed my view on it, and I really enjoy the idea of it. I think what I need if I get more into war games is for someone to play with someone who really knows the rules. So when I have questions, I can ask, and they are ready with the answers. Because the most frustrating thing about gaming is sitting there playing a game and just thumbing through the rule books for the entire time. And there seems to be a lot of that in war games. And I like machines that kind of run under their own steam rather than need, input from the rule book all the time. You know what I mean?
We should play the greatest hits of Mark Herman, basically. And I know what you mean about the rules situation with war games. I don't think they're more complicated than Euro games. I think Euro games are probably far more complicated. War games just have a lot of rules because, the ones that are attempting to be simulations, they allow you to do a lot of different kinds of actions, right? Because, if they're dudes on a map or like some kind of hex grid or whatever, or if you're playing a war game where you don't even have a board or like a layout, you just have terrain and you're kind of using a ruler to measure distance, kind of like what you do in Blood Bowl. Then basically you can do anything that you want. You're thinking at the strategic level. You're not just thinking about like, what do I do on my turn? Where do I put my workers and that kind of stuff? So you have a lot of rules because depending on what you want to do, you have to like add and subtract a lot of numbers. And there's like probably a rule for every possible thing that you might care to do in the game. I think this is what an advanced squad leader is supposed to be like, and no one's ever going to remember them all. So yeah, you have to kind of look stuff up to remind yourself, and that's why some of these games can take a while. But I'm sure we can get some solid recommendations for like war games that we would enjoy that have some kind of like pedigree to them. Because after all, like war games, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's like a bit of a gender thing. Like when I was a little boy, I played a lot of like ad hoc war games. I think they're some of the earliest games that you play, but just like using army figures in a sandbox and just sort of like creating, terrain in these like fake situations, and you make up rules, and it's like play in its purest form. And then later, you get into like these encyclopedic sort of war games with middle-aged men sitting around like very, very tediously going over the Battle of the Bulge for the fifth time in their lives. And it seems like it would be boring, but I think actually there's a different kind of enjoyment you get out of seeing that kind of a campaign unfold over an extended period of time versus just the sort of like 1 or 2 hour Euro game where you get like a much quicker thrill.
So one of my sort of ethoses, credos about board games is I think one of board games' greatest strengths is abstraction, is removing that kind of simulation aspect from it. So books don't prescribe everything to you. Books give you the scaffolding that you build your visual image of something, or the sound of it, the smell of it around. And I think board games do that, and their greatest strength is abstraction. That's why when I see a lot of these war games that have a rule for literally everything, I think you're somehow not utilizing the greatest strength that board games have. You're being too prescriptive. You're turning this art form into a technical manual. And, now, bear in mind, I am talking here from a point of ignorance, and I'm happy to be proven wrong on this, but that's what it seems to me. When I've played very fiddly games, I've thought, what's the point in this? You can use abstraction to hint at something and allow the pattern recognizing aspects of the brain to fill in all the rest of the stuff, and then you do that. And yeah, if everything is prescribed, it seems to me to sort of suck all the color out of it.
Nah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's partly a matter of taste. But I mean, how many more of these Silver Age, samey Euro games do you really want to play? At least it would be something new, something different. And surely the number of people who enjoy them are onto something, right? And you would get something out of it. I think some of these games they start to take on a life of their own. I mean, one criticism is that there's a lot of like dice rolling, and they're completely random. But actually, there is a large strategic component, and I think the simulation aspect is where, despite your strategy, there's uncertainty and there's randomness in what the outcomes are going to be. What is this, output randomness? I don't remember. And it's very interesting how it becomes like less this sort of like your intelligence against your opponent's intelligence, and then trying to figure out the sort of most optimal path through the game, and sort of sitting there trying to optimize your way through a Euro game can be just as soul crushing as flipping through a rule book, in my opinion. But in the case of these games, these kinds of war games, we have to like roll a lot of dice. I think actually the game takes on, it becomes like a bit of a story that you're participating in. You don't have complete control over what happens. It's like a different kind of experience. I mean, this is the case that I would make anyway.
All right, so one more question, Steve. What number are you looking for now between 1 and 27?
So why do you always ask me the number that I'm looking for, and then you just like pick a random one anyway?
Because, it's fun, isn't it? It's like I ask you, and then you go, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it was that? And then if it is, it's great. It just, you've got a 1 in 27 chance.
Okay, well, since I'm in the USA, and, this is like number one country, I'm going to go for number 1. Then in the rank of... In the rank order of countries, where do you suppose the UK is?
We don't care. We're not as crass as Americans, so we don't care really.
So British people are not
crass,
what I mean? Is what you're saying?
No, we're classy, and Americans are crass. No offense to the American listeners, of course.
You can't even like play together in the World Cup as one country.
Because I'm English. It's a different country. Scotland and Wales are different countries, Steve.
But you're not. You're the same country. You're not. They're not independent nations. So by this logic, New Jersey should have its own soccer team.
Which it should do. Anyway, so question is from Marcus Brisman, who we've met. You probably don't remember it, but we've met him. I remember him. What is your view, Steve, on asymmetry in board games?
I think I know that name. So is the question, what is your view, Steve, on asymmetry? Is this directed at me?
Well, I'm directing it at you.
Many years ago, I went to, and I mean like many, many years ago, I think I was 11 years old. I went to the New York State Renaissance Fair in fabulous Tuxedo Park, New York. And there was a guy there selling handmade board games, and one of the ones that he was selling was called Nefertafel or something. You've probably heard of Nefertafel. It's like a Viking sort of abstract chess-like game where one player has like a king in the center of the board surrounded by other pieces, and then the other player controls their pieces each of the other four sides. And the idea, I think, you're supposed to get the king into the corner of the board, and then that's like the king escaping or whatever. And this game is asymmetrical, and I think it's the first time I encountered a deliberately asymmetrical game where the king has a distinct disadvantage in this game, and it doesn't try to compensate for it in any way. Like if you play Go looks like it's got to be completely symmetrical, right? But actually, it's not. There's a slight advantage to going first, and this gets corrected in the way you calculate the final score by like half points or something. I don't remember the exact number. But this particular game, this Viking game, when the guy was explaining it to me, I thought actually it's very clever. I mean, I think it's very clever to try different things in game design, and why not do something asymmetrical? I mean, every game in a way is asymmetrical, right? Because not everybody is going to be equally matched, even if the rules of the game are completely balanced. If it's possible to completely balance a game, I have my doubts about that. So the games that are deliberately asymmetrical, like the coin games, are deliberately asymmetrical, right? We just said how much we like them. And I think Root is famously asymmetrical, and it seems to be extremely popular. I only played it once, and I don't remember it that well. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say about it. I think that my experience over the last few years playing games has been that like there's this sort of like ferment of creativity, and we're living through a very like experimental age. Like I'm all for everything coming out of the board game laboratory, basically.
Yeah, so I think there are games that are asymmetrical, that basically you do the same thing and your faction is asymmetrical. And then there are games like Root and there are games like Vast that you're essentially playing to different rules. There is a central goal, but what you're doing mechanically is completely different. And I think they both work. And I think they're both fabulously interesting. And the reason is because I think why gaming feels like such a valuable experience is that when you play a game well, there is a feeling of ownership, that you feel like with the help of the designer, you've managed to craft your own experience. And I think that asymmetry is just another layer of that you're owning your own faction in touch with everyone else who's doing their own thing. And I think as long as it doesn't result in a sort of solipsism, a sort of focusing on your own thing to the detriment of everyone else, I think it works fabulously. And I'm always a great fan of anything that can add some kind of asymmetry. But I'm also a great fan of the idea that you all start the same, and then as the game develops, your paths diverge and your tactics diverge, and in some games your mechanisms diverge. And I think on the face of it, you wouldn't call Through the Ages asymmetrical. But by the end of the game, what you're focusing on, the stories you've told, have become very different from the rest of the people around the table. And I think anything that contributes to this notion of ownership within games is valuable. And I think asymmetry does a great job of that. Or not?
I don't exactly understand the premise of the question. Maybe this is about specific varieties of asymmetrical game. So let's say Blood in the Clock Tower. Is that an asymmetrical game? I would say so. I think Sure. If you're doing at least the basic scenario, it's far more difficult for the evil players to win. You've said in the past that you find hidden movement games to be a bit tedious if you're the I forget which side you said actually. It's a bit tedious if you're the person who's actually hiding, like Whitechapel? I don't remember.
No. If you're searching, it's incredibly tedious.
But this is an example of an asymmetrical game, just like asymmetry by role, like what you're saying. Vast is another great example. So maybe this is not exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking more like in the coin sort of realm of asymmetrical games. Are there asymmetrical Euro games?
Well, it depends how you define asymmetry, right? If you have different player powers, if then you could say it, but I think it lends itself less to asymmetry, right?
Is there a classic asymmetrical game that you can think of? Like something that defines not the genre, but the mechanism, if you want to call it that?
War of the Ring is a classic asymmetrical game. Your goals are different. What you're looking to do is fundamentally different. You're playing the same game, but you're working towards completely asymmetric goals, and that's the quintessence of asymmetry, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I agree. Now, have the designers of that game actually stated outright that it's easier for the evil player to win?
No, I don't think it's necessarily true. I mean, the thing is, you played against me a lot, and I'm bad at games.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, when you play Through the Ages with Ben, it's like asymmetrical by default. But if it wasn't intended to be asymmetrical, then I wonder if it counts. Like, yeah, the aims are very different. They're almost like two different games on the same board, and you could still, depending on your strategy, depending on how well you do, maybe it doesn't matter, like the asymmetry. What is real asymmetry? Where everybody is actually headed toward the same goal and has the same resources, except something is adjusted to give one player an advantage over another for thematic reasons. I'm not sure. I want to hear more from the questioner, what they were thinking here with this question.
So, Marcus, get back to us and tell us more about asymmetry. Anyway, I just want to do a quick talk before we go. So, I just want to say that I love doing this show. I've been through phases of, feeling down about the whole project and then feeling great about it. And I mean, I've for the last sort of year and a half, I felt really great and really focused on doing this show, and I really enjoy it. And I think I do a good job. And I think the addition of Steve becoming more of a factor in the show lends a variety to the show that I think is valuable. And I'm not very good at asking for things, but it really is my goal to try and make this show as much of my profession as it can be. And so I'm asking you, and I know it's Christmas and I know it's a terrible time of year, but if you feel like you like what I do and you find it valuable and you feel like you can help, please go to patreon.com/5G4D and help. I don't like to ask, but fundamentally the show survives on the back of the people listening to it. So if you do find it valuable and you would like to help, I would be eternally grateful.
Okay, so that's the self-effacing, awkward British version. Now I'm going to give you the American version. Ben Maddox, 5 Games for Doomsday, putting out some of the top content in the board gaming media space. You are not going to get better reviews and insights and opinions and interviews and discourse and conversation about the gaming world today outside of this podcast. And if you're a listener, then you need to contribute. You need to help us make this an even better show. We want this to be a better show. We want to do bigger things, greater things. We want to deliver more to you, the listener, but we need your support to do it. So get on Patreon. Increase your pledge, get your friends to pledge, get your mom to pledge. Everyone needs to pledge. Holiday is a great time of year to show your support, show your love for your hobby and for the people who make you love your hobby more. I'm talking about 5 Games for Doomsday. Do it.
Thank you for listening to the 5 Games for Doomsday news. To listen to past episodes, you can go to 5gamesfordoomsday.com, or to back the show, you can go to patreon.com/5G4D. So, join us again next month for some hot and spicy 5 Games for Doomsday
news.